guys, this is going to be the walkthrough of the Raspberry Pi. This is one of many videos that I'm going to be putting together. This is just basically the unboxing. I'm also going to put the unit together as we go as well, just so you guys get a feel for what should be in the box and what you guys have access to. Again, as we go through, we're going to be making different projects and stuff. So this is kind of like, here's what's in the box. This is your Raspberry Pi. So you first pop it open, you got some README stuff in here. Always good to go through. Because I'm just opening up the box, I'm just showing you guys what's in it. So I can go back and read that at a later time. Looks like we've got the HDMI to small HDMI video cable for the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi 4 Model B itself, which we'll get into. Here is the, well, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a little SD card. It's essentially the hard drive that has the OS on it. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go. Inside the kit, it comes with a case for the Raspberry Pi. It's cheaper if you get the Raspberry Pi without the case. I got it because when you actually open up the Raspberry Pi itself, you'll see it's just the circuit board. And there's no guarantees if I start moving it around that I'm not going to shock it or zap it with some sort of ESD or like electric shock, basically. And we want our Raspberry Pi to last a long time. So it's just easier to protect your Raspberry Pi if you have it in a case. And this will allow us to go through all of our projects as we go. As you dig further through the kit, there's the power adapter and the heat sinks for the Raspberry Pi. Now it's taped onto the power adapter box. The thing that I like about this power adapter is it has a switch. Most folks who've had previous Raspberry Pis, it's just a straight power plug, and the moment you plug it in, sometimes you can shock the Raspberry Pi just because there's no switch to it. So it's just an instant zap and it's on. The heat sinks they have said are optional, but I always install them anyways. I've had a couple fry just due to the heat alone. So it's always good to install those. But that is pretty much the contents of the box. We've got the case fan. Sorry. And the switch for the power supply. This is the cool little toy. You'll see it as we go, but there's the on-off button there. Put that down there. And last but not least, it's the micro disc reader. So you've got an adapter. You can plug this into your computer. And we'll touch base on the software to load the different images for the Raspberry Pi as we go. But this is essentially the contents of the entire kit. So we're going to start assembling our Raspberry Pi, putting it all together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the quick reference guide down for a minute just to protect the Raspberry Pi as we pull it out of its box. You should be doing this on a clean surface. This is all I have at the moment, so this is a table, maybe not the cleanest, but it'll serve our purpose. So here is our Raspberry Pi. Okay, so next up, we're going to install the heat sinks. Looking at how this is laid out, we have the CPU, the RAM, and the USB and Ethernet controllers. My pack only came with 3 heat sinks, so I'm going to do the the CPU, the RAM, and probably the USB controller is most critical. There we go. The largest heat sink is obviously for the CPU. So that'll go on the RAM controller. And you know what, since since I'm probably going to be doing a lot of networking stuff with this, I'll put this on the Ethernet controller because I know this can run really, really hot. Hey guys, up next is the Raspberry Pi case. Essentially, the whole unit comes apart. The top part pops off, the middle part pops off, and then you got the bottom that you're left with. So you want to make sure this slot here is for the drive that goes on the bottom side. So we're just going to pop this around here. Make sure it's nice and snug. We don't want any issues when the unit goes together. I'm being probably a little more gentle with this thing than I should be, but I mean, you know, it's a new unit, so you want to give it a little TLC. So that's nice and snug. We're going to pop this part on, and pay attention because there's fins there, so you don't want to push it down on top of the unit and break anything. That'd be an expensive mistake. So now we got this on, and you can see all of the ports are nice and lined up, so that's good. And then finally, the groove in the top fits in here like so. Now, keep in mind there is a fan in the kit that's going to snap in here, and we're going to match the wires to the pins on the case there. But for right now, this is where we'll leave the case installation. Okay, so now we're going to add the SSD, the thumb drive, essentially. This little chip is where you're going to have the operating system and the majority of your files. Just on the bottom of the case, there was that slot that I said about we were going to line up, and we're just going to slide the chip right in the bottom there. So for those of you that I've made these units for, this little chip here, if I send out an update to you, you're just going to be replacing this chip with the latest one that I send out. For everybody else, if you've still got your original unit, you can just download any of the software, firmware, whatever we develop on just off of our site, and then load it onto your chip. So it's not going to be a huge issue there. Last is the fan. This guy, I'm going to make sure I double check the pins on it for you, because as I go through, this in itself is a little bit tricky, but make sure you go on our website to check out our documentation, because we will put a full walkthrough on this to make life easier. So essentially, the red cable you're going to want to put in as pin 1. As I push the case apart, sorry everybody. So make sure pin 1 is down. Should be good. And then the ground is 2 back and the 3rd pin in. So essentially this should be set up and good to go. And again, if you go on our website, you'll see a close-up of what pins are what. What I would highly recommend doing, because this should be fully set up and ready to go now, I'd recommend turning it on and testing to make sure you know which way the fan is blowing. I know that sounds like a silly thing, but essentially, when you start getting into thermal heating and cooling, the way you want these fans set up is so that it's blowing the hot air out of the case. So when you pop this on and you pop it all together, you want to feel just a slight breeze coming out of the actual Raspberry Pi hole at the top. If not, just pop the fan out, just flip it over, and then you should be good to go. But test it first to make sure that the warm air is blowing out. But otherwise, your Raspberry Pi is now officially set up and ready to go.